Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. All right. Dr. Griffin Jordan, what time do you have? I've got 6:59.
6:59 I have.
Now, didn't Dr. Hallman say, there he is, look at him, right, slid in right under the wire.
He was getting ready to talk about you, Holloman.
I was.
I haven't been late one time.
No, you haven't.
I may not be early, but I'm on time.
Yeah.
What is it now? The new on time is 15 minutes early, and 15 and on time is late.
Yeah. Nah, not online. All right, it's good to see everybody. It's case study 3 night. We're going to divide up again tonight, except tonight we're going to divide into 3 groups. Dr. Holloman and Dr. Griffin Jordan will have a group of their own. And so let me share my screen. And first thing we'll look at is our weekly schedule, as we always do. This is week 12, Zoom session 11, case study 3. You should be nearing the end of your skip by now, task 4. I met with Kayla earlier today. She's already at task 4 of the CAP. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to be there, but you kind of got to be paying attention here. If you're going to get to the first 2 tasks of the CAP before the end of this semester, we need to be approaching task 4 of the skip. Next week, we'll do accounting, budgeting, and reporting, and here are your discussion board questions for those. Interview an administrator about fundraising. 5 most important steps in budgeting, and locate a copy of your budget. The following week, we'll do some hypothetical cases, management principles, historical perspective, resource allocation, looking at those things. Then we'll have our Easter break, and then our final case study will come after the break, and then our final class. We're going to spend the whole time on sexual harassment, which is kind of the cottage industry in our business now. Sexual infractions of different kinds, and that's how we'll end up the semester. So for tonight, if you will go to, let me do that. If you will go to week 11 in Blackboard, you will see I've divided the groups up. If you don't see your group on here, that means you stay with me. And then here's Dr. Holloman's Zoom link and Dr. Griffin Jordan's Zoom link. And so if everybody will exit now and go with them, and then I will jump in and make them the host and then come back out. I'll do that, and then I'll come back to our group. And so I've got Jennifer, Marissa, Cherie, Allie, and Kristen, and then I've got Kayla, Amanda, and Brandon. So I've got 2. We've all got 2 tonight, so we ought to finish up and not be too late. So it's good to see you all again this week. And so if you will go to your spots now, I'm gonna buzz in with Dr. Holloman first. I'll open that one up, and then I will make him the host, and I'll jump into Dr. Griffin Jordan's, make her the host, and then I will come back to our Zoom.
It's gonna take me a minute,
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Lamb.
Okay.
I'm sorry. How did you say we get there?
You just click on that link right there.
Right,
You
right.
just click on the link.
Dr. Lamb, is that under case study 3 materials? You've got that link out?
No, week 11. Okay, Zoom 11, I have both links there.
Dr. Lamb, I'm not finding what you're showing on your screen.
Okay, if you will go to our class, our regular 603 class, and do Zoom session 11.
Okay, I see Zoom session. I was in the wrong, I was in the other one.
Okay,
All righty. So.
yep, hey, we can see you now. All right, so let's see. I am making you the host. Yes, I have made you the host, Dr. Holloman, so I'm going to leave now. Good luck to you. Okay. All right, I am back with this group now. All right, so let me go share screen. All right, I'm gonna make you the host.
All righty. Thank you.
Yes,
All
and
right.
I am going to leave. Y'all have a good evening. All right, so I'm back with my group now. All right. All right. So let me turn my camera back on. Make sure I am recording. I am recording. All right, so we've got 2 groups with us tonight. Have either of you groups not gone first? If you've not gone first, you get to go first tonight. So everybody's got to go first? I thought y'all had, because y'all are the A team. That's why y'all are with me. All right, so Kayla's group goes first then. I just flipped a coin. Kayla's had to put up with me twice today. Y'all.
So that'd be Brendan, you gonna share your screen?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see here. All right. Can everybody see the screen I'm sharing?
Yes, we can. Excellent.
Awesome. Good deal. So our group, Kayla, Amanda, and myself, we are going to kick us off tonight with case study 3. I'll begin with just a brief overview of the case study in question. So Jimmy and Willie seem to be gay male students that were seen kissing and holding hands at school, and their parents support them. As a result, the community, students, parents, etc., have quickly become aware of their relationship, and the community doesn't agree. The principal, Mary Lou, started getting calls, letters, emails, petitions, etc., discussions about petitioning prom if it's not canceled, or wanting to boycott, etc. The principal met with Jimmy, Willie, and their parents and expressed concerns about their safety at prom, along with encouraging those two students to, quote, pause their relationship until after graduation. And Mary Lou also mentioned that their PDA was disrupting the learning environment. The boys communicated later that the principal is infringing on their child's rights to freedom of speech. And Willie and Jimmy later even kind of doubled down and responded to the principal with ideas and different programs to promote awareness, such as creating a gay straight alliance, a diversity day, a day of silence, etc. So I'm going to address the first two questions. The first one was, would you consider Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat? Kind of a brief definition here. A veiled threat can be a coded comment that is indirect or disguised regarding a threat, warning, or attack. Veiled threats have an underlying intent. There may not be direct or openly explicit, but obviously you can interpret the comments as being understood. So the comment that Mary Lou made about possible harm at prom, that is considered a veiled threat. The principal may have had good intentions of wanting to protect the students from being harmed, but those comments are inappropriate thinking about Mary Lou's status as a school administrator. She can't say that. The comments could also be interpreted as almost using some type of power of authority to kind of persuade the kids into skipping the prom just to reduce, negative consequences of them going, or an issue or something breaking out at prom, or the community even being more disrupted from everything that's going on. Mary Lou should probably focus more on reviewing the board policy and student handbook with students and parents regarding fair and equal treatment of all students, regardless of their personal or religious beliefs. And obviously you can quote applicable laws and rights on that as well. Two comments that the principal made that were also inappropriate was about, putting things on pause until after graduation. That's definitely something that should not have been said as well. She should have focused more on supporting diversity and inclusion rather than worrying about negative publicity. It's important to note that Willie and Jimmy are victims in this case. They're not the offenders. I know obviously they broke school policy with PDA, but their rights and their beliefs definitely should not be in question in the sense of punishment or anything like that. And the second question here, we're talking about Mary Lou's responsibilities under the law. And so before getting into the law, obviously you want to think about local policy, school and district level. In our opinion, Mary Lou didn't really appropriately address Willie and Jimmy on the front end with their PDA. Especially when the boys flat out said in the case study, they have no intention of refraining from PDA. So the principal should have nipped it early, and maybe that would have calmed a little bit of the community's uproar down. It's possible that that may have helped. It's also important that Mary Lou is consistent with addressing PDA, not just students that, maybe LGBTQ, but all students, boy, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl. Are they consistent in, hey, you can't hold hands, you can't kiss in public? That's important too. And obviously thinking about them breaking PDA, you can't punish them twice. You can't say, hey, well, because of breaking PDA policy, you can't go to prom. You think about double jeopardy there in the sense of disciplining them twice. Really quickly with FERPA, the case study wasn't completely specific, but obviously the principal cannot speak to other parents about those two students. So under law, that's a responsibility for Mary Lou to keep that information confidential. And you also want to make sure by law that at the prom, Mary Lou provides extra security, extra supervision to make sure that those students are protected under their 14th Amendment rights. Kind of moving forward here, the last section about law, I have some laws here at the top that I'll briefly, kind of talk about. The boys are protected, obviously, under constitutional law with all of the ones listed at the top there, Tinker versus Des Moines, 14th Amendment, First Amendment, equal access rights. Telling the boys not to attend prom discourages their equal access to school activities, which can be considered as discrimination because of their sexuality. Per Tinker and Des Moines, the students' current actions do not present a danger or disruption of learning and educational process. You think about heckler's veto, the First Amendment, there's suppression of speech due to the possibility of violent reaction by the hecklers. Mary Lou can't do that. She can't suppress them, even though there's a chance of violence happening. Looking at the last little section here, the ideas that the students had, their day of silence, their silent protest, that's something that the principal has to support, as well as the Gay Straight Alliance Club for their First Amendment rights under law for freedom of speech. And the one thing I did want to check, I would examine that day of diversity where they wanted to have class activities regarding sexuality and race and such. Obviously, there's concerns about the students doing that and it not being related to state standards and actual curriculum that teachers can teach without obviously getting in trouble. So that might be something more as a club or after school activity where they can create a group that can meet and discuss ways and discuss activities to promote inclusion and diversity that way. And we'll now move on to Kayla for question 3 and 4 responses.
Awesome. Yes, I am ready. Okay, so the third question was, how should Mary Lou respond to the concerns of Jerry and Cindy Hudson? So the simple short answer is that she shouldn't be responding to that Hudson family. So she should not be discussing Jimmy and Willie with Mr. and Mrs. Hudson because it's a violation of the FERPA, and Jimmy and Willie are not the Hudson's children. So that's just the plain simple answer. But she also, I added in here, Mary Lou should inform the superintendent of the threats to keep communication fluid with the district. And the purpose, I was kind of looking at the bigger picture. The purpose of Jerry and Cindy Hudson in this case study is to show how, as an administrator, at times you can and will feel the heat and the pressure from parents or community members and sometimes students. And you have to maintain your ground and know that by following the law, your steps are appropriate. So that's what a strong administrator should do. And as administrator, your decision-making process should not be based on, should not be based on, will this please or displease the other stakeholders, but following the law. Ready for the next.
Can I stop you right there for a minute, Kayla?
Yeah.
All right. So Kayla and I were having a discussion earlier today, a collegial professional discussion. And one of the things that we were talking about was when you had a conflict or you had a ethical or moral dilemma. This is an example of what we were talking about, what Kayla and I were talking about earlier today. The moral dilemma here is these parents are demanding that you talk to them. The easy thing to do would be to talk to them and say, and they're going to complain on you if you don't and do all those. But what is the legal thing here? The legal thing is you can't be talking to these people. Now, let's remember, this is not just a local board policy or a state policy. This is federal law under FERPA. You could serve prison time over this. This is a big deal. You can't be talking about other people's children. You can't be giving private information. And even though they might be out publicly, you can't even acknowledge their orientation. That's not up to you. So this is a real important part here. Parents will come in and say all kind of racist, bigoted, and other things, and they'll start it by saying, I'm not a, fill in the blank, and then they'll go on to explain how they are a. But they'll demand that you respond to that, or to somebody else's child, or how much punishment did he give? My child got this, how much did that? You can't do that. And that's that ethical dilemma that you get into where somebody is putting pressure on you. You know it would be better for you if you talk to them, but the law says no, you can't. So this is an example of that. And you're going to be putting this, parents have no qualms about wanting you to break the law. And then they'll act like that's his problem. That's her problem. They have no qualms of coming in and saying the most racist, bigoted, bullying things, but then acting like you shouldn't take any action against them. I said I wasn't a, but then you just explained how you were a, fill in the blank. So the point is when you get these, when you get these parents who have these burning issues, there is nothing you're going to do is going to make them happy. Don't try. Follow the law. Excellent. Keep going.
Thank you. Yes. So number 4, should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom as a couple? So under Heckler's veto, Mary Lou cannot say that by prohibiting Jimmy and Willie from attending prom as a couple, that she's protecting them from unlawful actions or harsh words of the students and parents. Heckler's veto does not allow you to inhibit someone else's rights or freedoms based on what someone else might do. So yes, she doesn't really have a choice here, but to allow Jimmy and Willie to attend the prom, and prohibiting the couple from attending the prom for this reason is breaking the law. Equal access under the law also states that all students should have equal access to school facilities for their proposed clubs. So Jimmy and Willie should have the same opportunities that other students have and equal resources to ensure success. Prom is a standard activity in most high schools, so they should absolutely attend the event. And what Mary Lou should do is meet with Jimmy and Willie to explain to them that public displays of affection are against the school code of conduct for all students or couples, no matter what the sexual orientation is of the couple. This policy must be followed at all times during all school events. Violating this policy subjects them to the same consequences that a heterosexual couple would face. And so Mary Lou should be explicit in saying that while students are free to attend prom with a date or significant other, the rule still holds that public displays of affection are not acceptable during the event for all. Next slide, please. Thank you. So wrapping up my questions 3 and 4. So Mary Lou did not follow the law. Instead, she allowed her intentions to guide her actions. So she was trying to prevent, and I said 2 things here. First, she was trying to prevent chaos from ensuing in her school. And on page 40 of the narrative states, fearful that some groups would carry out their threat and wishing to avoid negative publicity, Mary Lou again met with Jimmy and Willie, et cetera, et cetera. And then so that's displaying how she was trying to prevent that chaos. And then the second thing is bullying against Jimmy and Willie. So by allowing her intentions to guide her, she broke the law. And once you break the law, a host of other problems start. And so if Mary Lou had nipped the small issue in the bud, as Brandon had mentioned, when it first occurred, and so that would be the public displays of affection that everybody saw at first, the problem would not have grown as large as it did. So the small issues that Jimmy and Willie were seen displaying affection for each other publicly, kissing and holding hands, and that's just plain and simply not allowed in schools. So on page 39, the narrative states that when Mary Lou met with the boys, they added that they had no intention from refraining from the public displays of affection. So she was supposed to stop them right there. The conversation should have shifted to freedom of speech and expression is fine as long as it doesn't violate the code of conduct, as long as it falls in line with that code. And what they've done violates the code, and next steps if done again. She did not address that as she should have appropriately. So even if you have the purest intentions at heart, the intentions don't matter. Following the law matters. So as an administrator, we should follow the law and not deviate from it, even if it causes unrest amongst parents and students. I think Amanda's next.
Sorry, I guess it would help if I unmuted myself tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to address bullying and cyberbullying. All right, so awareness is the key to bullying and to cyberbullying. Many people are under the impression that the more you discuss acts, the more that they happen. However, awareness helps those who are suffering to feel more comfortable to come forward. That's not just in terms of bullying, but pretty much in terms of anything. Awareness also sets the tone that these actions will not be tolerated by anyone. This includes students, community members, and school personnel. Next slide.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So Title IX protects students from the harassment based on sex or sexual orientation. And I did some research, and the Department of Justice protects students' rights based on sexual orientation, and administrators must protect the constitutional rights of students. So what I wanted to say there was that Mary Lou has to follow the law. Like, you have to take all of your personal bias out of everything. You must follow the law. And so this stopbullying.gov website, there are steps that must be followed by schools in order to protect students' rights. It's imperative that school administrators be thorough in their investigation and that they must take all matters seriously. You have to address everything. That website is a great resource for schools, like school administrators, for county offices. And then there are also additional resources at the Department of Justice under a community lab that serves a peacemaker that schools can use resources. I would kind of be cautious of is
Did we lose Amanda?
I think we did lose her.
Okay.
Well, based on what she was saying, I think she finished up the point other than the
Right.
last sentence about the resources and such. And I'm
Yeah.
flipping back here. Yes, she did. So she did finish her segment.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So let's, before we get to our second group here, and by the way, that's excellent. That's, y'all are getting better and better every time. That's about as good as it gets there, folks. That was really good. Let's think about Cindy and Jerry Hudson for a minute. I want to talk 3 or 4 points here. Cindy and Jerry
I'm sorry.
Hudson. You're back. Welcome back, Amanda.
I'm back.
We
I'm
closed
so
out.
sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Let's talk about Cindy and Jerry Hudson. I've kind of harped on them already tonight. You're going to have a lot of unreasonable parents come in your door. What do you do about people like that? I mean, seriously, what do you do about people like them? They want you to do things because they're angry how society is and want that. And I don't know why they think that schools can change society. And one of the things that was mentioned there is this notion that if we don't say gay, Florida, by the way, saying gay is what makes kids gay. No, I don't think so. And that we're putting a lot of burdens on schools right now, and angry parents that are unhappy with what's going on in politics in the world and in their communities. They come marching into schools and just demand the most crazy and radical and just unethical, illegal, immoral things they want you to do. What do you do about parents like that? Somebody, anybody. Got a thought, got an
We
idea?
actually had a,
We lost you again.
can you hear me?
You're coming in and out. We can hear you now.
Okay, let me try and join another way. Okay.
Okay,
Um,
on again. Your video's now better. It's not freezing.
okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. So we had a situation similar to this at school last semester where some things occurred, and I can, like, firsthand, there were parents who were in the building and like the way that it was handled, it was very difficult for teachers, for staff members, for everybody. But our administrators did a pretty good job of trying to keep it behind closed doors, to listen to the parents, and not to allow it to be out into the open. But they not like share information either. They listened to people's concerns, but did not share. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, I know. You let them come in and vent and go. I get that. That's one way to deal with it. That's a reasonable, I guess that's a reasonable thing. Anybody else have any notions on this? And I've got a couple things I want to run by you. So anybody else? All right. So here's a couple thoughts. Now I know this is going to go against conventional wisdom, especially for elementary schools, but first of all, you need to limit parent access to your school. They can come to the office, they can request an appointment with you, but this notion, I see these parents just come walking in like they own the place, and down the hall they go and into the class. You got to stop that. You should never allow that, ever. You should never, ever allow that. All these parent volunteers that come to your school, they don't help you a bit, folks. I'm just going to tell you what the data says. They don't help you a bit. I've seen a mama grab a back of another kid's shirt so her kid can get in front of him in line. And that's metaphor and that actually happened, but that's metaphor. You don't need these parents in your building. You don't need them in your building. They add no value to what's going on in your building. But what that does is that gives them that they think they then have the authority or the position to be able to comment on what they like and what they don't like and what you should do and not do. We want stakeholders, but we don't need them in our building. We need you to come to our meetings and those things, but we don't need you there running school. So that's your first problem is when you let parents get way too familiar, you create and you let them just come marching in and do whatever they want to do. Well, what if what they want to do is illegal, immoral, or unethical? What are you going to do now, hero? So, and some people would say, well, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. No, nothing good is going to come out of having all these people in your building. You need these children with professional educators. That's when they'll learn. I don't know. I'm not sure of the value of mamas, is what I'm telling you. Now, full disclosure, I was an elementary principal for 5 years. And I would let them walk them to the building in the morning, but I didn't want them in the building. Did not want them in the building, and you shouldn't either. So that's the first notion I want to float by you. And the second notion I want to float by you is making sure that parents know that they can't just drop by. This is not a ladies drop-in shower on Saturday afternoon. You got to have an appointment to come. You need to have a formal professional relationship with these people. You just can't come by and rant whenever you get mad. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, so I'm gonna go over and boss them around to school. Oh no. And you set the ground rules. As soon as you do something bullying or use profanity or raise your voice or whatever, I'm gonna have the security escort you out of here. You're gonna come and act like you're supposed to in school. And if you can establish those ground rules, we want to hear from stakeholders. They have a perspective, even if it's wrong, that's okay. But but we've got to establish again our role as leader in these buildings and not let parents usurp that from us, because they'll fill in the void as we have seen. Now, another part of this is antecedent behaviors. The little things become the big things. PDAs become more advanced forms of misbehavior, but that antecedent behaviors, it's also relevant to parent behaviors. The little things that parents do that are inappropriate, come running in, I need to give this and just and blow right by your security or don't check in the office. They're testing you. How much can I get away with? The little things become the big things. Now, I'm going to tell you the same thing I had to tell a second grade teacher 31 years ago. Never, ever, never, ever, never, ever trust parents, ever. They will rip your heart out and show it to you before you die. If it comes between you and their child, there's never going to be a contest. You must understand that. She had this parent that she was letting come to the building all the time, was in the room, couldn't turn around, couldn't cuss the cat for her. But then just as soon as she tried to discipline, and of course the kid, he thought because his mama was there, he could act in any way he wanted to. And when she had to try to get control of this kid who was just terrorizing her room, the mother turned on her. And I just can't believe this. She's just been my biggest supporter. No, she's been her child's biggest supporter. And she's just been leveraging you because you didn't know any better. She was a neophyte teacher in her second year, I believe it was, when I inherited her. She was hired. She was new the year before. But she thought because this mama was showing up and doing all this stuff that the mother supported her. No, the mother never supported you. She only ever supported her child and making sure that he got what he wanted, not what you wanted or what the other kids needed. And so you always have to remember that. I'm not anti-parent, but your job is leadership. And you have to act like one. And sometimes it's not popular. All right, let's ready for group 2 here. Share your screen and let's roll.
All right. So, I have to join in 2 different ways
That's fine.
because of the internet. So, so here we go. Okay, so this is Kristen, Jennifer, Marissa, Cherie, and me, and this is our case study number 3.
Okay, so we're starting out with the background and I have to fix this. This is weird. I can hear it on 2 different ways. Okay, sorry about that. That was really odd. Anyway, so as we know that Jimmy and Willie, they're students at Red Creek High School. They were BFFs, as everyone thought, inseparable. One day they're caught kissing, holding hands, and that news, as it would in most high schools, spread like wildfire and caused a huge uproar in the community. Parents and students, Mary Lou Hines, the principal, had to respond to emails, phone calls, letters she was receiving from disapproving parents and also community members. She met with the boys, which was great, I think, just to figure out what was going on, providing them due process. They did confirm their relationship, and they also said their parents were okay with it, and they were going to continue with their affection in public. Then parents and students started with petitions threatening to boycott the school, wanting prom to be canceled if Jimmy and Willie were allowed to attend as a couple. Then Mary Lou implied that their PDA was a disruption to school and it could put Jimmy and Willie in physical danger with their classmates. She tried to encourage them to kind of lay low, and graduation's coming up and they can move on after that. They wanted to start a diversity, acceptance, inclusion club. She shot down that idea, just kind of brushing it off. You can go ahead, Allie. So this was also my slide. So were Mary Lou's comments a veiled threat? We believed as a group that yes, it was a veiled threat and a potential bullying situation, definitely an abuse of power, which we know is kind of that stereotypical definition of bullying. And Mary Lou's judgment and failure to take action were inappropriate. Her lack of actions and that passiveness, we believe, would be considered a form of negligence. And in this case, it could be cited as non-feasance. And the example would be wait until after graduation to resume their relationship, lay low for the time being, and Mary Lou did not address the public display of affection at all until it was brought to her attention by angry people. So protocols, policies, and laws must be followed at all times. The school never ever stopped or addressed the PDA until there was a huge uproar. This case needs to be about actions. We can't see where Mary Lou's heart is. We don't know what her intentions are, but we can only see what actions she has taken. So as a great reminder for all of us, we're always judged on our actions, regardless of what our intentions truly are.
So Kristen mentioned the idea that the principal didn't initially address PDA. So her first course of action would be to address the PDA according to her school and district policies. But there are also several federal laws that she must consider in order to protect the rights of students. And whether she agrees with them or not, as an administrator, as a school leader, it is her job to uphold those. And so the first one is FERPA. She shouldn't be discussing students, their sexual orientation with parents or anyone else outside of them. The First Amendment, Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, Title IX, and equal access all equally impact this case. So the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, students do have the right to be gay or express their sexual orientation. They can hold peaceful protests. So based on this law, that means that students can have a same gender prom date. They can hold a day of silence event. And the case that we cited here was Tinkers versus Des Moines. And heckler's veto means, in this case, Mary Lou can't say that she won't allow the students to have a club or organization. She won't allow them to go to prom just because others may be offended by their presence. Additionally, the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, it applies to all citizens, even students in public schools. And this means that the schools, they have the duty to protect LGBTQ students from harassments just on an equal basis as they would protect all other groups of students. Title IX, it basically prohibits discrimination based on the basis of sex or gender. And so it also protects students from harassment and discrimination. So as a school leader, it's Mary Lou's responsibility to ensure that those students aren't being discriminated against, harassed, or bullied based on their sex or gender. And the Equal Access Act of 1984, it basically says that all students are afforded the same opportunities and access to facilities as other student groups. So if the principal allows other student groups to convene on campus, she has to allow the Gay Straight Alliance if it is the desire of those students. She can't say that she's not going to allow them to hold the club or to form the club solely because she's trying to avoid other students feeling uncomfortable or unpleasant.
So going into how we should actually talk to the Hudson family as Mary Lou, we talked about and discussed as a group that the first thing we need to do is have a conversation with the families, set up meetings to have a conversation with them both separately, as we talked about before, making sure that we keep that confidentiality right there and present, and then explain to them about the law that is in place for both of their children and help them and reassure them that, we are, as an administrator, we would do our best to make sure that they're safe, but we are not obligated to we cannot talk to anybody else about their child or their student. So making sure they understand that that FERPA law is there and let them know the law is the law and just be very clear with what has to happen.
And the short answer for should Mary Lou allow Jimmy and Willie to attend prom is yes. This is another instance of the Equal Access Act of 1984. Students are guaranteed equal treatment and access to any school functions. And for Title IX, it prohibits that gender-based discrimination. So Mary Lou should 100% let them go to prom and just as the other group stated, make sure and let the rules and regulations of prom be known about PDA, that it will be treated the same regardless of the sexual orientation of the couples.
Okay, now before I go into how bullying and cyberbullying should be addressed as an administrator, I wanted to just go back to what Marissa stated earlier about the different laws. And I feel that as an administrator, it's our first and foremost, it's a responsibility for us to create an inclusive culture that protects all students' rights and follows all of those laws, the 14th Amendment, Title IX, the Equal Access Act. I think, and if you establish this culture that is understood across the board, then you can handle situations as they come. But if you don't have a culture like this and you do not create this inclusive culture, then it's going to be really tough to prevent any sort of bullying or cyberbullying from that point. So I feel that as an administrator, we should always create that inclusive culture and engage students and staff in bullying prevention and policy and inform parents of that policy, but always be fair, consistent, and timely when enforcing school and board policy. And as far as bullying, always review bullying policy with students and staff, ensure there are confidential reporting systems in place to allow students to safely and confidently report bullying, and make sure parents are aware of all bullying policies and grievances procedures. And then when cyberbullying occurs, you must involve law enforcement immediately, and also inform cyberbullies and cyber bystanders of the consequences for cyberbullying and immediately follow through. And ensure there is a safety plan. This was mentioned earlier, I believe, in the other presentation, a safety plan in place for the victims, that staff is aware, that, all your other administrators are aware of what's going on to protect them. And then also follow up with parents separately regarding each child. And I'll go ahead.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Something was
Okay.
going on with my phone.
I figured, I didn't know if you were having audio difficulties.
I was. I'm sorry. So anyways, our takeaways: follow the law at all times. We keep figuring this out by all of these case studies and the research that we're doing, and also the importance of knowing what our district and board policies are and what is the conduct, school conduct at your school based on the handbook, what is in writing. You got to follow it at all times. And then when in doubt, always reach out to the district office for guidance. We cannot be afraid as administrators to reach out to other people for advice and guidance, especially when it's coming to legal action or we could be in trouble or liable. And then this is a big one. Leave your feelings and opinions out of the decision-making process. We really need to focus on what is the law, what are the policies, and move forward. And then be proactive as an administrator. Address the problems early. If you keep brushing them aside, pushing them aside, I promise you they will sneak up and bite you at some point. And then ultimately, we really need to provide equal access to all students, regardless of what our opinions, feelings, and judgment is about certain issues.
All right. Excellent job again. So let's talk about this club deal. Now, we all know that they have a right to form a club as an after-school activity. Does anybody still have club day like we did back when I was in high school a million years ago, where you run a club day schedule, you take 5 minutes off of every class and do that during the day? Some places do that, some do it as after school. Now, when I was a high school principal in Charlotte, we had stopped the practice of having club day, and it had to be after school. But it's still an extracurricular activity. And there are rules that you have to go by from that. Now, you all know that we can't change the curriculum at school. I mean, we can't be, Jimmy and Willie won't, diversity or won't units taught. That's not up to Jimmy and Willie, just like it's not up to parents to go to the library and pull books they don't like. We can't allow stuff, crazy stuff like that. But let's talk about the club deal. Whether you had it during the day or after school. I have different thoughts on during the day than after school, but I'll keep those to myself. But I think most of you work in places where for a club to form, they have to have a faculty sponsor. Is that correct? That was always everywhere I ever worked. It was always that way. That was local policy.
That's how
Now,
it was in high school.
so my question is this, aspiring administrators. Would you assign a faculty person to them if they couldn't find one? Would you ask somebody or require somebody on your faculty to do that? If Jimmy and Willie came to you and said, I want to form this club, but we don't have an advisor. We can't find anybody that wants to be our advisor. Would you take it upon yourself to go and find them one, either a volunteer or a conscript? Would you get involved at that level?
And
One or the
honestly,
other or both?
in this case study in particular, with the community being so upset about what's currently going on, you definitely would have trouble finding a sponsor because it almost puts a target on that teacher's back. And so kind of similar to what both groups have been saying, that might even be an opportunity as an administrator, as the principal, or going to your leadership, your administrative team, and finding someone to step up as an administrator that should be more familiar with the law, more familiar with handling parents in those delicate situations. And, to be that intermediary between those kids who deserve that right, deserve the ability to have that extracurricular club and activity, but also being able to, bridge the gap with those concerns that with parents finding out, oh, they have a club now, oh, they're doing this now. So I would definitely reach out to the administrative team and say, hey, these kids, they have this desire, they have, these rights, and even equality wise, if all the other clubs have a sponsor, we need to make sure there's a sponsor there too, or even the other way around. What if the other clubs don't have a sponsor and now you're requiring that the Gray Straight Alliance have a sponsor? It has to be consistent. So
I think everybody should. I think everybody has a sponsor, especially you might, you can't get away with that during the day without having one. If you're doing it that way, you got to have one. But I think you have one. But I think to Brandon's point, they deserve to have their club. But you better not assign a teacher, because that's the first thing they'll run out and tell the people in the community. They made me do this. That would not go well. And I would not ask a teacher to volunteer either. It's time for the straws. The administrative unit, we got to draw straws. One of us is going to have to take this. Me and my 6 APs, and I'd probably make my 2 admins as well. That would have been how many of those? I had 6 APs and 2 admins. That's 8. So I'd be 9. We need 9 straws, 1 short one. We're going to have to pull straws, and whoever pulls the straw, you're going to be the sponsor. That's exactly what you would do in a case like this. You can't even let a teacher volunteer if they want to in a case like this. You can't do this to a teacher. You're gonna have to take the bullet on this one. You're an admin team, and you're gonna have to draw straws. I mean, when I was a high school principal, I took the least popular job, like the senior class advisor that gets all the slings and arrows for the prom and the yearbook and graduation and everything that everybody's mad about. You got to step up. That's what leadership is. Kristen, you had your hand raised. Go right ahead. Jump in. Don't wait. You're muted again.
Okay. Yes, I'm on different devices. So I was just going to say that being one of the school counselors at my school, that this is definitely going to be a push for next year, because we have figured out that we have a huge population of students that really don't have that place to belong, and they need to have their voice and that equal access. So I had great intentions of doing it this club rotation, but we just didn't have enough information and basis with the law and all that stuff. So I wanted to make sure that we can get that off the ground and running in the fall at school. And the administration was fully supportive of the idea of it. So.
I think you're exactly right. I was asked one time when I was principal at a rural school in one of the rural districts I worked. I was seen at the local community college on a Saturday at the soccer field watching our kids play soccer. They had a little community soccer league down at the community college, and somebody said, "I didn't know you liked soccer." I said, "I'd rather take a whipping than watch soccer." And they said, "But why are you here?" I said, "Because kids are. These kids need something to hook onto. They need something besides classes at school that will keep them there, that will grab them. And if it's soccer, then I'm a soccer fan." Of course, it was awful watching them. It was just awful. But you got to find something besides classes to hook kids at school. If you don't, they won't make it. They'll drop out. Or they'll be drop-ins. They're still in school till they're old enough to drop out. And so kids deserve it. Now, in Jimmy and Willie's case, the notion of kids that need love the most deserve it the least. Jimmy and Willie don't deserve it because they've been turds about their behavior. But they need this. They deserve this. They deserve the love, and so your administrative team needs to take this on. That's kind of the exit on this case is, the law and what the principal ought to do and all those kinds of things. But in the end, one of your administrative teams going to have to take this one on, because these kids deserve something that will grab them and hold them and hook them to school. That's just the notion. So we got one more case study to go. Y'all were beyond good tonight. I'm so pleased. Y'all are really doing a thorough job, and you're doing tremendously well. I don't have enough superlatives. I don't have a good enough vocabulary, but I'm very pleased with the work that you're doing. You're keeping up. Your grades, your scores, everything is good. We've got another class week. And then we've got break, and then we'll have our last case study. So I will see you all again next week. Thank you again for joining us, and thanks for choosing Gardner Webb. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.